All right. Peace and greetings, YouTubers. So welcome to another edition of In the News. Let's just jump right into it. I want to start with this clip just because I got some questions, all right? So let's go to the clip.
Dang, Mama, you starting already?
Yes, I am. Can you finish this while I get the ham ready real quick? Josh, we ain't got time for that today. Josh, can you go ahead and take the ham out so I can put the macaroni in, please?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey y'all!
Hey.
Hey.
Where y'all want these hot dogs?
Hey, Josh. What's
Hey.
up?
Yeah, I can take that.
Thank you.
Well, let me say this. You know, as a family, they seem like a happy, loving family. And I think that's the important aspect of these family gatherings, because there are some families that cannot get together because as soon as they get in the room, it's going down. However, listen, I ain't never seen a whole family that can't cook before. Like how is it that the whole family can't cook? And usually, everybody has at least that one dish that they can do all right. You know, that thing you're okay at doing. And so that's the safe meal. I saw nothing that was all right with anything. I think the safest thing on there to eat might have been the pineapples that was sitting on top of that conjunction of ham or whatever that was. And then the craziest part is, as each dish came out, they got worse, okay? Joshua, you are terrible for putting your family on the internet like this for people like me to find. Because I almost felt bad, I ain't gonna lie. I felt bad because it felt like the mom was really trying her best. Like, she seems like she just stressed out, and Josh be recording her every time she get in the kitchen. But man, the part that got me, It's when I don't know if that's the grandma or the aunt, but when she came out there like, where y'all want these hot dogs? I was like, y'all, it's Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, it's supposed to be like the premier meal. This is supposed to be the meal where you go all out. You know, maybe the Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, maybe Mother's Day. I'm not the biggest holiday person, but I still appreciate good food. And so, you know, when Grandma Mabel came out with the hot dogs, I'm like, dogs on Thanksgiving? You know, if you do make hot dogs on Thanksgiving, that was normally like the food to hold everybody until the real food was ready. But as you see the clip, that's all the real food. I was like, okay, then she even made the hot dogs right. I was like, y'all, these boiled hot dogs that don't even look cooked all the way, if you're gonna do the hot dogs, either make them on the grill or at least saute them in the skillet with so they can brown a little bit. I'm like, man, at this point, y'all should have just went to Sizzler, okay? They got some really great deals. I think they got the all-you-can-eat steak and shrimp. I forgot how much it is, but they should have just went to Sizzler, you know, because, man, some of them things I couldn't even recognize what it was. And then, of course, as I look, and you look at it in that top right corner, of course, string bean casserole. I said, man, y'all are checking all the boxes when it comes to stereotypes right now. But, man, whew, okay. Oh, but it's so funny. She was so excited to bring them hot dogs in there, like, and she said it like it was like a specialty, like, oh my God, these are hot dogs that are to die for. So when I saw them, I'm like, oh. But you know, honestly, next to the pineapples, the hot dogs might have been the safest thing to eat, because it's some of them things I couldn't figure out what it was. Like I don't know if that was a bagel with sour cream and cheese. I don't know. They got a lot of cheese in all their dishes too. Like, if you follow me, you know I don't like cheese like that. I'll eat pizza, but I'm not a cheese person. So everything on there just had my stomach turning sideways. I was like, man. That almost reminds me of the other clip I saw where it's the mom that gets pissed off because the family wanted her to season the turkey a little bit more, because the only thing she did was put mayonnaise and like a hint of pepper, and she got an attitude because the family was calling her out. This clip.
Got it?
No.
You got it?
No. I don't know. All right, good.
That's the whitest thing I ever seen.
It's mayonnaise.
Stretch my eardrums. Pick open the stupid thing.
Get out of the way.
Open the drawer.
Hold on, I gotta put some more seasoning on that while you
Let
got
it put
that.
some seasoning.
Did you do mayonnaise last night?
There's
Mayonnaise is not a seasoning.
I seasoned the whole.
Mayonnaise.
You seasoned it.
Put it in.
Mom,
Put it in.
let's just throw some
Go
pepper.
ahead.
Did last night.
Where?
Shit.
It looks white because there's mayonnaise on it.
Cook all you want. I'm done.
Hey, there's a
All
little.
right, we'll put some on
Hey,
there
there's
quickly.
some-
Come on, let's get it in
All right, let
there.
me just make sure. What do you put on normally?
Like, I didn't realize y'all be going through all this on these holidays. Like, Mama was sick of it. She told y'all where y'all can go at this point. Like, a turkey is already dry. Like, a turkey is a lot of work. That's an all-day project. Like, you got to keep basting and making sure to marinate and get the juices and season, because turkey can be so dry if you make it wrong. Like, if you ever want to take somebody out, like, take them out All you got to do is force feed them some turkey, all right, with no water. They're done. Okay, between that and stuffing a Popeye's biscuit down somebody's mouth, they're done. Done. They ain't coming back. So yeah, happy holiday season, y'all. I just, yeah, they should just put the Sizzler. Man, but you know, it's not even just them, because on the other side of the spectrum, my people, I don't know what we doing. I saw that clip of the lady with the greens in the tub that she was cleaning. I'm like, why are we washing greens in the tub? Why? When you think about what's in the bathroom to begin with, all of the particles that float and fly and land and stick and stay, and you just, you know, that's what we're doing. And that, listen, them greens then came with a side of like Comet and bleach and Tilex. Just think of how many particles are in a tub even after you've cleaned it. And then even just a tub. Think about if you got like a big family. All the people who go in and out, and again, the tub is the place where you get all of the impurities off of you and rinse them out. Or if you bathe in like an actual bath and just sit in it, like different people, so different sets of germs, and you decided to put the greens in there. Between that and then people frying up the food in the dryer, I said, ooh, there's a lot going on. Now I want to talk. I know y'all made fun of me that time I put the steak in the waffle maker, but that was just because I couldn't find my grill, and I just wanted the steak to have the little squares on it. But I put it in the oven a little bit just to make sure it was still done. But dang, happy holidays, everybody. Stay safe. Anyway. Also, as an update in regards to the Comedically Hardheaded short film that we've been working on. For those in the Los Angeles metropolitan area, we are looking for one additional set piece. Now, the set piece that we're looking for is a throwback car, but not just any throwback car. We're looking for a throwback car that looks like it was literally thrown back. Like that car has to look like it has been through it. Maybe all the paint has rusted off. Maybe it's been in a few accidents, so it has a bunch of dents. Maybe one of the front lights is busted out. Maybe the window might be missing. Just anything you can think of, that just a car that just looks like it has been through it. It has to look like a car that was registered in Angel Grove. If you ever used to watch Power Rangers back in the day when it was still the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Angel Grove was that city that got destroyed in every episode. So at the end of every episode, the bad guy would grow and turn into the big giant, and then they would go and just start tearing down buildings and stepping on cars. Okay, it needs to look like the car was on set of that show, all right? And so we're looking for any model that's probably from before maybe 1998 and before. The early 90s is probably best, or even the late 80s, or man, if you got a car from even the late 70s that still works, that looks like that, then that would be really great. And so if you are interested in supporting us with that, shoot me an email at calvinbmichaels@gmail.com. We are also paying for those who would let us use this car. We would need it from between December 10th and December 12th. And like I said, the car would not actually be driven. It's just going to sit on the sound stage. We already have the insurance and everything covered in regards to the car, so the car just needs to get to the USC lot and, you know, back to the initial owner. But as far as what we'd be using it for, the car's not going to be driven. It's going to sit on the stage. So if you are somebody who would like to support, or you know somebody who has a car and they don't mind it being in a short film, for the purpose of humor and comedy, then definitely shoot me an email, calvinbmichaels@gmail.com. So for this next story, let's go to the picture. Now, if you look, this is a throwback picture, and you see a bunch of teenagers. They kind of look like they're taunting the two black kids in the front. And then if you look in the back, there's a red circle, right? If you look at the kid in that circle, that is a young Jerry Jones, who we know as the president, general manager, and owner of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, to put things into further perspective, this picture is from 1957, and this was actually in front of Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, if we remember what happened in Little Rock, this was the scene of a major national televised story where a lot of white mobs tried to stop black students from attending this new school that was going to be desegregated. And guess who was in the crowd cheering everybody on, ready to throw hands? Young Jerry Jones, right? It's crazy. Look, they got this man in 4K. This good quality picture. Great shot. By the way, I had to double check. I saw this and I had to go back and Google how old Anderson Cooper was, because I went to this kid over here and I said, okay. I had to just was just checking, just had to make sure. You know, sometimes folks have a certain image and then you go back in their history and find out all kind of stuff. But no, that's not Anderson Cooper. He's a little too, he'd be too old to be Anderson Cooper today. Anderson Cooper's only 55. And so anyway, what was very interesting is all of the backlash has kicked in. People are outraged, like, oh my God, he was out there doing, you know, whatever, and so on and so forth. Jerry Jones, by the way, first of all, there was no shock for me. Like, I was like, not Mr. Toes to the line. I know y'all ain't shocked about anything he's done. But anyway, his response was, that was like 65 years ago. I was a young kid, and I was just curious to see what was happening. I was like, okay, so now you're curious. Now you're in Midnight Star. I'm curious. But anyway, so he said, he was just curious. Some of his friends were going out there. He just wanted to kind of see what was happening, just checking things out. And I was like, I could almost hear that, but the problem is you stayed. And when you saw what was happening, it's not like you left, because even in that picture, you can clearly see them taunting the black kids, and he's standing right there in the mix. So if you were so curious, once you realized what was happening, it should have been you either leaving or you trying to fight everybody else to make them stop, and that didn't happen. So I don't want to hear it. And what's interesting is so many people were trying to defend and say, oh, well, he was a kid. He was, 14 years old. And I will say, yes, he was a teenager. But at the same time, if we're talking about the context of what was happening in America at that time, by the time people were 13 or 14 or 15 years old, they knew what was happening in America in regards to race. They may not have necessarily fully understood all the ins and outs of systemic racism, but they definitely understood that there was a conversation of power in regards to race. And what you're seeing is a bunch of teenagers, because these are not adults, these are all kids. Why are all these kids here? Because they recognize that, one, they have power in number, and two, the fear or the threat of having somebody else come into their space where they feel that they're going to be challenged, where they will no longer be the standard, has them enraged just like their parents. Because why? Their parents always brought all these kids to the nonsense anyway. So when you had the public lynchings, people brought their whole families. It was a family event. Here's the picnic. There's the newspaper ads. Everybody come on out, bring some snacks. We're going to have a froth, and we're going to lynch a few folks. It's going to be a great time. And so the kids have always been present and saw everything that their parents were engaging and indulging in. This is the era of segregated pools where black kids are not allowed to go to the pool. You don't think them white kids used to see the black kids standing by the fence watching, wishing they could get in the water, and the white kids in the pool just having a good time. Woo! Right? They knew what the hell was going on back then, okay? The parks are segregated. The theme parks are segregated. Businesses have specific hours for black folks. Whole sides of town black people are not allowed to go to. That's why you got like green books and everything when it came to road trips. These kids knew everything that was happening, and they actually benefited from it, and they wanted to protect it just like the adults. So I don't want to hear any conversation about, oh, he was 14, he didn't understand. And even if we wanted to use the conversation of, well, that was 65 years ago, let's talk about who he is now. Well, let's talk about who he is now, because not much has changed. The only thing is he got richer, all right? Because for me, looking at it, I still have yet to see any black ownership or coaches on the Dallas Cowboys, so not that much has changed. And again, going back to the era of toes to the line, literally that's when I was really done with the NFL after that one, because remember, if we go back, and again, this is a conversation of symbolism. I'm not even that pressed about it, but it's the principle for me. And so we go back to the era of all the NFL players catching smoke because they didn't want to stand for the national anthem. And so you had a lot of teams say, okay, well, here's our solution. Rather than go out there and kneel during the national anthem, we'll just stay in the locker room and we'll come out when it's over with. That way, there's not an issue. What did Jerry Jones say? He said, I think the F not. Actually, all of y'all gonna be out there toes to the line. I said, woo, okay, because I'm like, that kind of language there. To me, that was like, okay, Jerry definitely had a parent or two that was a sharecropper owner. Like he must have witnessed some of them older relatives regulating at the plantations when it came to sharecropping or something in the fields. Because dang, not toes to the line, all right. And then that just killed me too, because then the players worked my nerves, because it's like, if the players knew the power they had in number, like if every player said, we're going to stay back in the locker room, what you going to do? What was he going to do? Get rid of the whole team? Right? Because not to go there, but y'all ain't won a Super Bowl since I was in like second grade. So at that point, you needed the players. The players had more power than Jerry in that moment, but they just didn't see it. So all the players were out there, toes to the line. I was like, man, you know what? And then it was funny because then Jerry did do that moment where he was like, well, we're going to do a kneel real quick. But it was like, he brought the team out there, and this was not during the national anthem. It was like, all right, y'all come on out here. He got out there, take a knee. Okay, let's go back to the field. I'm like, okay, all right, Jerry. So yeah, Mr. Toes to the line, I'm not shocked at all. But going back to my argument, when it comes to people trying to use the definition of, oh, well, they were kids, it's so funny to see how there's always a double standard of what defines a kid and what doesn't. Because first of all, I think back again, we could bring up Tamir Rice, and Tamir was 12, and he was shot in 2 seconds by police who thought he was an adult, and he was playing with a BB gun, and they said he didn't comply, and everybody had all the smoke in the world about what he did wrong, or even Trayvon Martin or Jordan Davis, or all these kids who have unjustifiably been killed for stupid reasons by people who were racist, right? And then I look on the flip side at somebody like Ryan Lochte. Remember in 2016 in Brazil, he got in trouble, and Brazilian government was pissed off with him, and then all of our news media was like, oh, well, Ryan Lochte, he's a 32-year-old kid, and they were just out there having a good time. I said, 32-year-old kid. Now, 32 is not old. And 32 is still relatively young, but 32 is not really the sharpest crown in the box. That crown has been worn a few times and resharpened, and at this point, you're ripping the paper off the sides to get the rest of the crown. So I was like, 32, depending on your genetics, some people's hairlines are already receding. Some people got the thinning in the back, some people got the grays. The six-pack has unpacked and just turned into cushion. So I'm like, 32 is not a kid. I'm sorry, it's not. You're young. 32 is still relatively young, but 32 is not a kid. And so it's just interesting to see. And then again, like I said, in these moments when it came to conversations of race, because the parents and the grandparents always made sure that their kids saw what was happening so that they could instill in their kids that they were better than other groups of people, the kids would often engage in the same nonsense. So by the time you get kids to hit that middle school age of 13 or 14, or even early high school 15, they understand what happens with race in regards to power and in regards to what they can get away with and what they can't. That's why even when you go back to like New York and you talk about Rosedale, Queens in 1975, and you see that protest, and it's the protest from when they were starting to integrate the neighborhoods, and so all these white families were going out there and protesting because they didn't want the black folks moving in. You saw a bunch of kids out there literally chasing and taunting the other black kids that were out there, chasing them on their bikes and everything else. Why? Because at that point, the kids understand what's happening. They may not have it all the way down to a T, but they recognize that there is an element of power that they have, and they want to protect it because at that point, the status quo works in their favor. They may not be able to verbalize or materialize or put everything into the right context and perspective, but they have enough of the tools to understand how racism works in their favor. And that's why I'm like, I just don't want to hear it. And even when we talk about different groups of people, culturally, by the time people hit that middle school age, they're well aware that their race plays a role into how they operate collectively in regards to their culture. It's not even a conversation of if somebody is racist or anti-racist or anything. It's just understanding that by then, people understand that they have a shared experience with people who share their same race because, again, the United States is a space that has always been segregated by the way it was mapped out and by the way everything operated in regards to business and commerce, that different cultures and collectives and traditions were created in those spaces where everybody was segregated, or when everybody was segregated and spaced out. This is why if you go to a middle school, by the time you see the kids there, they start to segregate themselves in the cafeteria in comparison to when they were in elementary. So if you go to a school that's really diverse, like an elementary school, all the kids are playing together in kindergarten, first, second, third grade. It's just a free-for-all. Everybody's having a great time. Everybody gets along. The birthday parties are really diverse. Everybody just has a really great time. And as these kids get older, they start to recognize that, hey, culturally, I kind of like to be around people that kind of share my same experience, or I kind of like to be around people that watch the same stuff I watch, or hear and listen to the same music I listen to, or wear the same clothes that I wear, or maybe even live in the same neighborhood that I live in, or maybe go to the same church as me, or the same barbershop. And so before you know it, by the time these kids get to middle school, you start to see the tables segregated. Not because they dislike anybody else, but because they recognize they have a shared culture with the people at their school. So if it's a school that may be like 90% white and there's only a handful of black kids, but they all get the same lunch, yeah, them black kids sit together at lunch because this is the one time they get to chop it up before they go back to a classroom where it's just them and two other people that look like them. And so you can even look at like a school dance and see how school dances in that age, like middle school, kind of can be segregated depending on what music is playing. So when I look back at like my middle school experience, the dance floor would constantly have a shift of people coming on and off depending on what was playing. If there was like a heavy metal song that came on, if it wasn't something that was super commercial that everybody knew, a lot of the black kids left the floor because it's like, we can't really dance to this one. We're gonna go get some juice out the cafeteria real quick, right? And then if there was like an R&B hip hop song that came on, you know, if it was super commercial and popular, everybody stayed on the floor. But if it was something that really hadn't made it to like a TRL or made it to the national public radio playlist and everything like that, and it was really something more so regional, a lot of the white kids left the floor, right? Even if it was like Tijuana music or something like that, where, you know, it's a little bit more centered for those in the Latino community, other groups would leave the floor, and then that group would stay there. And then if it was country, this group, like, so people kept leaving. And it wasn't, again, a conversation of, well, it is a conversation of race, but it's a conversation of race through the experience of culture. And so, literally, Jerry Jones at that age and them kids in that picture knew exactly what they were doing. So yes, we can say they were kids, but again, when we want to talk about modern times, Jerry Jones, in my opinion, not that much has changed. Yeah, like I said, he just got richer. So I don't know why everybody was all of a sudden shocked. I was like, oh, all right. Yeah, now you just see his origin story, if anything. Oh, and Stephen A. Smith, please. All right. Please. I'm not even about to address his nonsense. It's funny. Keep that same energy across the board, Stephen A. Smith. Actually, I changed my mind. Stephen A. Smith, you tried it, and let me tell you why. Because the thing that gets me is every single time there's a black athlete that gets caught up in some kind of nonsense, some kind of scandal, whether it be big or small, Stephen A. Smith is always one of the first in line, not only to just be over-performative with the reaction and the outrage, but also the first in line to always want to come down with the hammer and try to make an example out of somebody. Sometimes he will act as if some of these athletes are like Dick Cheney and they went and shot their friend in the face while quail hunting and got away with it, and then somehow the friend apologized for getting shot in the face. That's the kind of energy that Stephen A. Smith has with some of these athletes. And so, for me, it's just so interesting because, like I said, he's always one of the first to lead the charge when these black athletes get caught up in something. He's ready. You know, it's almost as if he feels that by being over-performative and overextending his outrage, it kind of would absolve him from being associated with the conversation of blackness, where I'm not like one of those Negroes because look at how outraged and offended I am at what they did. You know, I'm in this position that I'm in, and so in order to make sure that I can maintain it, I have to always make sure that white America knows that I'm one of the safe ones. That's the energy that he has always had. And so for me, I'm sitting here watching this clip, and he's talking about, I'm just so pissed. I'm pissed about the way this man is being treated. Jerry Jones gonna be alright. Jerry Jones is a rich old white man that lives in Texas. He ain't got nothing to worry about, okay? He's not gonna lose the team or anything. As a matter of fact, if anything, if we were to trade places, listen, Stephen A. Smith, let some stuff go down with you. I can guarantee you right now, Jerry Jones is not about to back and protect you with anything. And so, what I just, for the life of me, could not understand, if I'm hearing this straight, you are just pissed because there's a scandal that comes out with Jerry Jones, and it's not even really a scandal because everybody already knew the man was racist. It's no secret, right? So there's a scandal that comes out with Jerry Jones. People find out about it. People are outraged. And so you're mad at people's reaction to the obvious, when in reality, the actions of Jerry Jones in the past and some of the patterns that we've seen in modern times, if anything, you should be outraged at the fact that people like Jerry Jones have such power in something like the NFL, and that people like Jerry Jones, in my opinion, represent the face of everything that's wrong with the NFL in regards to how these athletes are treated. Everything from what happens with them not really getting any settlements when it comes to all the injuries that they have once they retire, as far as like CTE or the pensions or anything like that. The conversation we've already had about athletes not really being able to express themselves politically when it comes to what happens in things that oppress their own respective collectives, as far as taking a knee or anything like that. Like, those are the things that you should be outraged about, because Jerry Jones, like I said, is the face of all of that, and recognize that he ain't the only one. Go and start digging into the past of some of these owners and Dan Snyder and some of these other people. You start finding out everything. But instead of being mad at all of the corruption and the nonsense and a lot of people in power at the NFL who should not be, because at the end of the day, it is the athletes that put their bodies on the line. It is the athletes who are getting knocked upside the head and they can't speak in complete sentences by the time they're 65. It's not these owners who have not had to do anything. They just get to write the checks and make the rules. That's what you want to be pissed about. And so it's interesting because even when it comes to race, Stephen A. Smith is inconsistent. So he on one end of the conversation, he will speak out and say, you know, I feel that I don't get paid what I should get paid in comparison to my peers. I think it's because I'm black, blah, 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 blah. But then on the flip side, when you realize that you said too much and you might be in trouble, now you want to be overperformative and coddle Jerry Jones of all people. Like, and the thing about it, Jerry Jones don't need your help. He gonna be all right. As a matter of fact, with this current state that we're in as a country, this is the perfect time to be a white nationalist or be a white individual in power who has very questionable opinions, viewpoints, and practices, because they literally get rewarded for it. You know, they get the opportunity to run for office and have viable shots at winning. Some of them win, and they get to go on school boards and become governors and senators and people in Congress and county supervisors and delegates and everything else you can think of, all in the name of whiteness and running on campaigns that don't even have platforms. And the main draw to the attraction is that they're racist. And it's fine now. They can be out in the open because we're now in a space where things like white nationalism it's almost accepted. Because now our media has been bought out, so that can't be challenged. And so you're seeing some of the worst people rise to fame and nothing happens. We're now in a space where a white kid can drive across state lines and go and shoot two people at a protest and be deemed a hero. And not only that, people donate money to the tunes of hundreds of thousands for that individual. And that person gets all kind of accolades and platforms to get into new spaces because they're seen as a hero. Why are they seen as a hero? Let's go into the context. If you know who I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about. And so again, those police brutality protests were seen, it doesn't matter who's at them, but the idea of a police brutality protest as far as anti-police brutality represents the face of a black collective going against the status quo, saying, hey, this is not right, we want things to change. But in order for things to change, that means the status quo changes. The status quo changing would automatically shake up the comfortability levels of those who benefit from whiteness. So by anybody being at an anti-police brutality rally, they are seen as what you would call the enemy, or they are seen as an agitator, they are seen as a problem. And that's why Kyle, whatever his name is, could drive across state lines, go and shoot 2 people and get away with it. And then on top of that, the 2 people he shot were white. And so what makes it even more interesting with that is understand that once people ever etch or latch on to any kind of movement, especially if it goes against the status quo, they are seen as a component of that movement, and they are no longer seen as I guess one of the people that would be on the right side of history. So whiteness goes out the window once you are seen as somebody who has associated with anything that goes against the status quo, anything that's associated with blackness. This is why when you talk about what happened with like freedom riders or different things that happened in the civil rights era, even white people were being killed if they were seen as being associated with black folks. And so that's what we saw with Kyle you know who in regards to everything that happened with that. So that's the space that we're in. And even politically, you don't even got to be white to get into some of the doors if you can say the right thing. So somebody like a Herschel Walker can literally run a campaign on, God, we don't know what the campaign is being run on, but again, he's saying everything that white nationalists love to hear, everything that the racist demographic of America wants to hear, and they recognize that because this man ain't playing with a full deck, pretty much they can get him to do whatever they need him to do, and they'll still maintain that status quo, that kind of power. And that's why there's a runoff, because again, the fact that it was even that close, no policy, just vibes and stupidity and vibes and saying all the things that folks want to latch on to, and we'll go ahead and put him into power. So that's where we're at in America. And so for Stephen A. Smith to break his neck over Jerry Jones of all freaking people, make it make sense. Make it make sense. And it's so funny because I always say, you can sit here, and I always say all the times, be weary sometimes of black folks that are in high spaces and places, because sometimes they be on some nonsense. And understand, even when you get into those spaces, by shucking and jiving and tap dancing, recognize that the minute you slip up, done. They get you out of here that quick. All right? Let a scandal happen to Stephen A. Smith. I bet you Jerry Jones won't be pissed off about what happened to him. Made me spend all my time on this stupid topic. Anyway, moving on. And then when it comes to the Shanquella Robinson case, at this point, Mexican authorities have announced that they have an arrest warrant for one of the individuals that was there. It says that it's for a woman, and everybody is pretty much guessing or assuming it's probably the woman that was seen assaulting Shanquella in that video. I just want to say, the thing that kind of scares me with a lot of these events that take place is, just like I said on the last live, if it weren't for social media, a lot of these cases would just be closed, and it would just be whatever the authorities said it was, and that's it. And like we saw that with Kendrick Johnson, and that was the kid where he somehow mysteriously ended up in the wrestling mats and died, and then they just said, oh yeah, he climbed in there and suffocated. And then you find out later details where it's like, okay, when they went to do the private autopsy, he didn't even have any organs. It's just newspaper. And they're like, there's all these different things that take place, but there's been so many instances where if it weren't for social media, especially when it comes to the death of black individuals, black women, black children, black men, a lot of times the media ignores literally everything. And if it weren't for the people who spin and give these stories traction on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, a lot of these stories wouldn't get the traction they get, and there wouldn't be any follow-up action to make sure that things are taking place that are supposed to take place. And so, I saw her mother was really grateful that, pretty much you guys on social media were the ones who got the story and gave it some traction, where people started to go back and investigate, and people started to look at things because so many details didn't align. It didn't help that this also happened at a time where we already saw additional deaths that took place that kind of were questionable, where you saw, the 3 that died in the I guess it was an Airbnb from carbon monoxide poisoning, like that, like literally in the same week. I'm thinking Shanquella Robinson was one of those 3, and they're like, no, that's a different story. I'm like, are you what? But no, but with Shanquella Robinson's situation, and us first initially hearing, oh, she died from alcohol poisoning, and that's what they tell the mother, and then so they come back to the U.S. not even with the girl's body, but then you find out like, no, it wasn't alcohol poisoning. And then when you start looking at the autopsy reports, stuff ain't added up. This woman has neck and spinal injuries, got a busted lip, got a bloodshot eye from some kind of blunt force, like all kind of things, a bruise on her head, and it's like, wait, something does not add up here. And so it to me, it's just I have so many things I want to say. I'll just say this. I think a good channel you can follow in regards to this story is Tisa Tells. Like, she's been doing a really great job of probably giving like almost a daily update with what's been happening with the case and really looking at things that are like in litigation and different releases and stuff like that and documentation and stuff like that. She's been really good. But I just keep thinking of, like, again, when it comes to something like social media, like Trayvon Martin's situation would have never been a thing if Twitter didn't exist. Breonna Taylor, you know, and that has gotten some layers upon layers to the point where now there's new charges and you have, you know, new people being charged. Or if we talk about, you know, what happened with Ahmaud Arbery, like all these different stories where if it were not for social media, you know, these things wouldn't get out. That's what kind of scares me a little bit about like somebody like loony Elon Musk being in charge of Twitter, because I'm like, something like that, I don't think people realize exactly how much weight some things like social media carry when it comes to making sure that people receive the justice they're supposed to receive when they've been done wrong. And I also want to side-eye people who are clout chasers, who are, you know, this is a vulnerable case. You know that information is coming and changing by the day. Why are you posing as people associated with anybody named in what's been, you know, investigated? Like, why are people pretending to be certain individuals or be family members? Like, I hate when people find ways to do that, because it disrupts the progress. It disrupts, you know, what attempts are being made to make things come full circle and people understand exactly what took place and who is responsible. Like, that's crazy. So I've seen people, you know, pretend to be one of Shanquella's friends that were there or be one of Shanquella's relatives, and I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. But, you know, the whole case has been very strange and a little stressful to follow, especially when you found out that she had just been at the villa for 3 hours. You know, there were opportunities for her to go to the actual hospital, and some of the people now was like, no, just keep her there. She just has alcohol poisoning and everything else like that. And so for the poor mother, you know, that has to be a hurt. That it's one thing to lose a child, but it's another thing to know that your child died by injuries or died by violence. You know, that I think is a hurt that is the worst, and especially when it's supposed to be people that are supposed to be your child's friend. And when people have not even been honest about what happened, and you're getting the runaround in regards to what took place. And it's it's a lot. I hope everything works out for the family, and I think we're going to definitely see what happens. And this is why when people always be like, y'all don't care about black death, or no, y'all only get mad when white police kill black folks. Pay attention. Like, with all these people I've named, whether it be Breonna Taylor or somebody else, like, Black America feels some kind of way when things take place, right? And with Shanquella, as soon as people saw that something wasn't adding up, people started sharing this story, passing it around. Same thing with like Kanika Jenkins. Like, you start seeing these different instances where stuff does not add up at all. I'm looking at all them friends sideways. Absolutely crazy. And it's stuff, I don't know. I hope everything works out. Let us move on. Because, yeah. But like I was saying, I think a good channel to follow in regards to that story is the Tisa Tells channel. She's done a really great job of talking about everything that takes place in regards to that case. There's some other channels as well, but I don't get a lot of time to sit on YouTube too much, but I've seen her videos. So we will see how this unfolds, but I definitely think there's going to be additional charges coming in. Like I said, everybody that was there, I'm side-eyeing everybody. Everybody to me is suspicious at this point, because how did it even get to that point? You know what I mean? And then for me, like, I couldn't sit through the video, but as a man, how do you sit there and let this girl just get wailed on and you just stand there? You don't do anything. You don't interject. You don't see that at this point. The fight has been the fight, and now at this point, they're literally just one step from just wailing on the girl. She's not fighting back, and you just stand there with the camera recording. Okay, so I want to bring the energy up just a little bit, because I saw this on Twitter, and I didn't realize this was a thing, but I was reading it where it was saying that about 30 to 50% of the population are able to have what you call internal dialogue, where they can have like a conversation with themselves, like in their head, not speaking out loud. And then there's another segment of the population that can kind of close their eyes and envision different things, where it's like, you know, if they were to close their eyes and paint a picture, they could do it. And so I thought everybody could do both of those. I didn't realize there were people who don't have internal dialogue. And by the way, this is a question, like, is internal dialogue and internal thinking the same thing? So I should have did this on the live so I could get real-time answers. So for the people who I guess don't have these things as far as internal dialogue, or they can't close their eyes and see an image of something, like, what happens? Yeah, I just want to know, like, what happens? Like, are you walking all day and nothing is going on until you say something out loud? Is it, you know, if you are trying to envision, like, what happens when you sleep and you dream? Like, wouldn't you still see something when you're dreaming? I don't know, man. Y'all give me some responses in the comments. I just want to know how this worked. I was very intrigued by this. I was like, this is very interesting. Yeah, I thought everybody had internal dialogue. And I want to make sure that internal dialogue and internal thoughts, I'm wondering if that's the same thing or if they're not interchangeable. And internal thoughts means you can think something, but you can't. I can't even explain it. I can't even get it out right because I'm so confused reading about this. Interesting. So yeah, share your 2 cents in the comments on that one. I want to know how this works. We're going to revisit this during my next live. By the way, you guys are not going to probably see me for like another 2 or 3 weeks just because I'm about to be out for a minute with everything with the shoot. And then my mama's in town as well, so I'm getting my mama time and a few other things. So I'm also the musical director for a musical right now. So there's a lot of things going on. So I'm all over the place. But yeah, I'm still stuck on that. I really thought everybody, you know, I thought stuff was going on up here. I don't know. Y'all tell me. Anyway, let's move on. And then condolences to everyone who's been affected by a lot of the gun violence that's been taking place in this country, especially with these mass shootings. It's weird because I hate to say it, but it seems like it's almost, I don't know if y'all can hear these sirens. Every time I start talking about some crime type stuff, there's always a siren or something outside. But it seems as if these mass shootings have become so normalized where the shock is not even there. And I think that's a scary territory to get into because then you don't see the same effort to combat it and you don't see the same effort to find ways to find solutions so that we don't have to keep having these conversations and seeing these tragedies literally every week. So we saw what happened in Colorado where you had the individual go and they shot up the LGBTQ plus nightclub and shot all those individuals and killed 5 of them. And in that instance, the people, at least in that club, were able to somewhat fight him off. Like, I was reading that, I mean, they were stomping him out, heels and all. I said, good for them. Handle your business. Because clearly, like, sometimes, even with some of these police departments, we see where sometimes they don't move fast enough or they don't do anything like what we saw in Uvalde. But, you know, it's crazy to me that we're just in this space where it is so common for people to feel that others have to be collateral to whatever's going on in their head. I just... You know, if I'm speaking specifically of the Colorado thing, you know, another thing that really just I found so frustrating and just like, what the heck, man, is when they interviewed the suspect's father. And the suspect's father's talking about the shooting. And the main thing he was concerned about was he was trying to figure out why his son was at the gay bar. He just wanted to make sure his son wasn't gay. And I'm like, your son just shot like a dozen plus people and killed 5 of them. And that's the thing that you're worried about. Mind you, listen, I am from Pierce County, Washington. At one point in time, that was the meth capital of the United States. I know a meth face when I see one. So that father has other things he needs to worry about. Like to think that right there would be the main issue that he was concerned about, as if your son did not just go and kill a bunch of folks and ruin the lives of many people who will now not get to see their relatives for the holidays or see their relatives ever again in general. Or for people who, you know, because one of the victims, sadly, they were out, it was like a family gathering. I think the relative was performing and the rest of the family came. And so it's like you literally have people who are just trying to enjoy their lives and they got to be collateral to nonsense. Even in this case, these are people who have found their own seclusive or exclusive space, right? Because they get their own space, do their own thing. They're not bothering nobody. They're being their best selves in the space where they feel safe amongst others who share their same collected experience. And the fact that somebody would still go and target them and then go and shoot all them people, and then you still got some of these random weird evangelical right-wing preachers trying to say it's a good thing. This is what God wanted. No, it's not. Y'all be on some bull crap with that. Like, it's so interesting, and I think it's a dangerous territory when you constantly try to use the convictions of people's religious affiliations or how they see, you know, the world spiritually and try to associate it with violence and nonsense and make it politicized and then justify it all in the name of God. That is some BS. It'd be real interesting. Like, just know, all right, if I was some person who had no spiritual anything and I was, I don't know, on a journey to try to get closer to the Lord, them nonsense folks that be in some of these pulpits, you don't got to worry about me joining your church, because clearly I would not want to spend eternity with none of y'all, the way some of y'all are so hateful. So that I just crazy. And then on the other side, we saw what happened in Walmart, where you have the manager who goes and he shoots up all the co-workers in the break room. I'm like, this people, and he had like a whole like manifesto type thing and a whole letter he had wrote, and he was saying like he was possessed by Satan and some other things, and was talking about some of the co-workers and why he had like a whole list and stuff, even though he didn't even really utilize the list. When he just went there, he just started spraying everybody. it's so sad that, again, everyone is becoming collateral to the issues that other people have. And because it's just so easy to get, some of these weapons, like literally, I think Andre got his gun the same day. But these people, they get these little AR-15s and all these different things, and they just go, and it's just, it's so weird to me that so many people are comfortable going and taking others out. And we're now in this space where when these tragedies happen, it's happened so much that there are some in the collective, as far as like the United States population, where it's just another Tuesday, it's just another Wednesday. Okay, I heard about a mass shooting. Okay, well, let's go ahead and go to Target today. Like it's very, I don't know. So condolences to the families that have been affected. I just listen. In regards to what happened with Colorado, people are going to be who they are. Leave people alone. Let people go be great. In regards to what happened with Chesapeake, listen, if you got some kind of nonsense going on, you don't feel happy about things, you go take it out in the boxing ring. Find a hobby. Do something. We've just gotten to the space where people are so comfortable killing each other. Just because. Killing any and everybody with no regard. Like, just understand that each person who is a victim of gun violence has a family. Has maybe kids or siblings or parents or friends, or they belong to something. And recognize that once somebody is taken out, there's no coming back. That void is there permanently. And a lot of people end up in pain, mourning the loss of some of those people. Like I said, for those in DC, one of my favorite, nonprofits or organizations that I like to support is Guns Down Friday. That's more so for intra-community violence. But I have their website in my description. Definitely support them, donate. They do a lot of really great work in DC metropolitan area. They do a lot of really great work. I've talked about them a few times, but check them out if you get a chance. But yeah, condolences to everybody who's been affected. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this video, but I will say for those who are a part of the book club or who are interested in doing the book club, we're going to have the next book club session resume in January just because there's so much going on my plate. I just don't have enough time. So we just wrapped the last book this past Monday, and so I have not made a selection for the next book club session yet. So if there's a specific kind of book that you think maybe we should cover, definitely add it in the description, add it in the comment section or shoot me an email. We try to do different kinds of books each time. So one time we did one that was through the perspective of an individual that was just kind of living, and it was them kind of just sharing their experiences. So that was more of a nonfiction. We did one that was a little bit more historical or political. We just did literature. I really like the biographical books on music artists. Those are my favorite kinds. So I'm leaning towards doing something like one of those. But I haven't picked anything yet. So if there's a specific kind of book that you are interested in, then yeah, let me know. Give me a heads up. And like I said, the book club will resume when we come into the new year. I will try my best to review the Soul Train Awards. I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to see it. I know it comes on tomorrow night, but I don't know if I'll get to see it. So in the event that I do, there'll be a review. If not, most of you guys are probably not going to see me till about December 13th. Sorry, guys. It comes with the territory. It's great that I'm doing all these great projects, but if I'm not here, I'm not here. So who knows? Maybe I'll start using that YouTube Shorts thing. Maybe just shoot something from the phone real quick. I don't know. Anyway, I do want to end on a good note because I feel like we had a lot of heavy stuff. So this is one of my favorite clips to watch. I don't even know. I just hope this kid is off to great things. This is from years ago, but I always enjoyed watching this clip because that boy tore that instrument up. Tore it up. So anyway, I'm going to go out on that note. Anyway, share your 2 cents. I'm out. Subscribe.